Welcome to the Health by Haven podcast. I'm your host, Haven Quinlan. If you're a multi-passionate wellness enthusiast, then you're in the right place. I'm obsessed with learning as much as I can about the wellness world, and I want to share that with you. Each episode will dive into various aspects of health and wellness through inspiring and informative guest interviews with some solo episodes thrown in. Tune in for all things health, and let's have some fun, shall we? Is your home in need of a refresh? I don't know about you, but I love reimagining and redesigning my space. If you're wanting to liven up your space and level up your decor, be sure to check out Arranger Paints on Etsy. The shop is full of beautiful paintings, many inspired by nature, and all sure to give your home a custom feel. The paintings also make great housewarming or birthday gifts. I've gifted paintings from the shop and have Arranger Paints artwork in my loft. As a special thank you for supporting the Health by Haven podcast, you can get 10% off your order with code HXH10. You can find the full collection of work at arrangerpaints.etsy.com or scroll down to the show notes for the link. Hannah is an Integrative Health Coach, functional practitioner, and acne specialist. Her mission is to help people achieve optimal health through education, functional lab testing, and strategic coaching. By running top-notch functional lab tests, she's able to get a holistic snapshot of your body that she is then able to connect with your thought patterns and behaviors to identify your personal roadmap. She believes that health is our greatest asset, and we all deserve to understand how to best take care of ourselves. Hannah, thanks so much for joining us on the Health by Haven podcast today.
Of course, I am so excited to be here and chat.
So for listeners who may not know you or may not follow you on Instagram, can you give us a little bit of background on how you got interested in the world of health and wellness?
Absolutely. My interest in health started at a very young age. I would say as early as 12 or 13, I started diving into, what a nutritious diet was like, how to take care of yourself from physical activity, self-care, all that kind of stuff. But never really thought that I would be able to make a career out of it. That wasn't really a thought that crossed my mind, to be honest. And then as I went through high school and college, that passion for health really not only carried with me, but grew. And then as I graduated college and was in my first couple of years of post-grad, I realized that there was an opportunity to make it a career and take it a step further. And in a way, my passion for health gave me no choice but to figure out how to make it a career. So that interest was always lingering, but really ramped up here in the past couple of years.
Awesome. I just love chatting with people who, are like living out their dreams. They're making their passion their work. So tell us a little bit more about, did you study this in school? Did you do things after school? How, you mentioned it wasn't something you thought could be a career. How did it go from that to now being your job?
Yes. So I did not study health in college. I studied marketing and fashion merchandising, and then just kind of had the health hobby on the side. I had some internships that were involved in health and kind of just used that as a hobby. And then as I graduated, I moved to Austin, Texas. I had a job in the fashion industry as a buyer. And about 6 months into that, I started to realize, okay, I don't think this is what we're most passionate about. I don't think this is what we're supposed to be doing. I am way too passionate about health. Can I do something with this? And so as I started to kind of have those thoughts, I journaled on it a lot. I would go to my journal and write down different thoughts of, what could I do in this industry? How could I make this a career? And at the same time, IIN, which is Institute for Integrative Nutrition, was kind of on the rise, I feel like, on social media. And a lot of people were starting to become health coaches. And at the time, I was also seeking out my own functional doctors to learn more about my blood work and my health and all that. And I wasn't having the best experiences, to be honest. I kind of got frustrated. So there was kind of a buildup that was happening simultaneously of I wasn't feeling like my career path was the most fulfilling career path or what I was supposed to be doing. And I was also frustrated with the experience I was having within functional medicine and with different practitioners and so on. So those two kind of merged. And I was like, you know what? I want to be the type of health coach and practitioner that I would want to see. And I think I can make a career out of this. So from there, that is when I kind of started enrolling in all of my different schoolings and dove into that entire process, which I'm happy to dive into more too if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely chat about that. And I think to your point, a lot of people have at one point or another in their life frustrating experiences with the healthcare industry. And, obviously everyone working there in that industry, they're so overworked, they're so busy, they're working really hard. So coming at it from that lens, like, first of all, I totally understand that their time is finite as well. But I agree that like even I've had experiences where I feel like, okay, well, I just really got like rushed through that appointment and I didn't really get to the bottom of what's going on. And maybe I had something prescribed to me as like a Band-Aid fix instead of really trying to figure out, okay, like why is this thing happening? I've struggled a lot with like gut health and IBS and things like that. And so was there a specific thing, like origin story, I guess, that like got you to that point? I know you said you were frustrated with some of your appointments that then pushed you to be like, okay, I want to go seek out whatever first certification you had.
A couple. It was a little bit of a build up there as well. I went to my primary care doctor and I was interested in learning more about my thyroid. Thyroid dysfunction kind of runs in my family. So I was really interested in learning about that. Everything that I had listened to and read from a more functional perspective had told me that if you ask your doctor for a full thyroid panel, they're probably going to say, no, you don't need it. She said the exact words. She was like, no, you don't need that. And I'm like, okay. So that started my kind of, journey into seeking out the more holistic perspective. However, I ran a GI map. There was candida that showed up on it. And the only advice that I was given by that functional doctor was to eat softer foods, quote, like mac and cheese. And I'm like, I'm no doctor, but this cannot be the solve for that. So I went on to find another functional doctor who put me on thyroid medication, and that was not feeling intuitive, nor did I need it at that time, knowing now. And then also I went to another functional doctor who sat me down with blood work, and she could not explain to me the why behind things, right? My inflammatory markers were high, but why? My gut markers were off, but why? And I couldn't get that question of why answered. And so that was kind of my final straw where I was like, I'm going to do this myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, also kudos to you for like continuing to pursue that because I think a lot of people, you hit the first roadblock and you're like, oh, okay, like I guess this is it. Like this is what I'm dealing with. And it can be extremely frustrating to keep going. And then especially when you're seeking out, people that you think, okay, they're going to help me out. So I can certainly see why you're passionate about why you're doing what you're doing. So maybe talk to us about from working in fashion to being like, I don't know if this is like really my true calling. What was that first step you took to kind of like dip your toe into the health world?
First step I took was enrolling in Institute for Integrative Nutrition. So that was my health coaching certification. And from there, I kind of fast tracked it a little bit. So I started with IN to get my health coaching certification. Halfway through that, I realized that I really loved what I was learning and that didn't scratch the itch. I still wanted to know more. So I enrolled in a program with Cornell University online on nutrition. And then from there, I went on to get my practitioner certification, which is what allows me to order labs. And then from there, I took a course specializing in blood chemistry. And that took about a year and 8 months, I believe. So it all happened pretty fast, but I did the schoolings back to back to kind of take that leap.
Okay, IIN has been a common topic on this podcast. A lot of the guests have been through that program. So it sounds like it's certainly a good kind of like holistic foundation for becoming a health coach, knowing all sorts of different things about our health and what goes into it and what could affect us day to day. And I actually, I did a nutrition program through Cornell as well years back. So we probably did the same one, which I found
amazing.
also so fascinating, so enlightening about, I mean, we truly dug into the science of all the food that you eat and how it affects your body, not just how you feel or how you look like short term, but talking about like how it can affect inflammatory diseases, heart disease, all those things like down the road as well. So I have to imagine that all the functional and blood panel certifications, and I apologize, I don't know all the proper terminology, but that you went through were just like so interesting as well. So maybe tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what was it like to learn the science behind all of that?
Yeah, so eye-opening. So with my first practitioner certification, that dove into labs that were more focused on gut health, hormone health. And so that was really fascinating and kind of was my initial dive into the biochemistry of it all. And I think every practitioner kind of has their different like unlock or aha moment where they're like, wow, this all makes sense. For me, that was blood chemistry. That is what I really gravitate towards. And blood work is a huge, 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 huge piece of my practice now. It's what I start every client with. And so when I was able to learn about the gut, learn about hormones, learn about how stress impacts our body, all of that, and then pair it with how that impacts the blood work and how you can see it in blood, that was when I was like, the whole game is changed. And
Yeah.
so blood work was really kind of that missing puzzle piece for me.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe, I mean, obviously client confidentiality, but like pretend I'm walking in, I'm your client, and you can pick whatever you want to pretend like is showing up on my panel. But what are some of the common markers that you see that maybe people are struggling with finding a balance? And then from there, how do you work with them to remedy that?
Yes. So one of the big kind of panels that I like to look at is just metabolic markers. So that will be your hemoglobin A1C, your glucose, and your fasting insulin. And fasting insulin is a marker that I'm very passionate about because it is rarely ever checked in conventional medicine. I have yet to see it checked by a conventional doctor, even in my clients who are right on the cusp of type 2 diabetes. And fasting insulin is also correlated to every single major disease, cancer, heart disease, cognitive decline. So it is so important that we check it, and it is never checked. And it can be impacted by a lot of things outside of diet. It can be impacted by your liver, underlying infection in the gut, stress, cellular health, and so on. And so that I believe is a marker that everybody should have checked at least once a year to make sure that we're in our optimal range. And it's not. So depending on where that marker is, I see it out of range a lot. Then we'll do kind of a personalized protocol based off of their root causes of why it might be high. So it might be high because of their diet, or it might be high because of internal stress that's kind of causing, havoc on the liver, and that's impacting the receptor sites of insulin and so on. So the protocols really look different depending on why that marker is high. So I would say that insulin is a huge one that I see. White blood cells are also another really big marker that I see impacted, and those are like your immune soldiers. And so obviously we want them an optimal head count because, when things like COVID comes along, or, your cold and flu season is happening, we want your immune system to stay strong, but also so it can monitor your body for incoming bacteria or parasites, heavy metals. And I see those really chronically low now because our bodies are just up against so much these days. So those are kind of the two things that stand out. Of course, we're also seeing a lot of hormonal imbalances, especially in women. But those hormonal imbalances are often a kind of trickle effect of underlying infection and toxic burden in the body.
And that's something that you just said right there, I think is key, is that so many of these things are all interconnected and intertwined. So I imagine sometimes it's challenging, which came first, the chicken or the egg type thing. And so really like when you see a lot of those things affected, what you're starting with is that fasting insulin, I guess.
So what I'm starting with when I see all that is more so underlying infection and toxic burden. That's what it's usually always coming back to, is something burdening the body that could then be throwing off insulin. And at least the clients who are coming to me, they already do have their diet pretty optimized from a blood sugar perspective. So if their insulin or blood sugar is thrown off, it's more so due to that underlying infection and toxic burden that's then kind of having the ripple effect.
Okay. And so tell us a little bit more, like layman's terms, for people who are listening who may be like, what's toxic burden? Like, I know you mentioned stress, but what other things could be affecting that marker for people?
So heavy metals are a big one that we're seeing nowadays. People ask, where can I get heavy metals? Like, how are they in my body? They're ubiquitous. They can be in our soil. So even when we're buying organic produce, they can be in our produce, in our water. If we're not using a good, high quality water filter, they can be in greens powders, protein powders. There was a study that came out there in tampons. So they're really everywhere. It's not always about mitigating the source completely, but controlling it as much as you can, getting a water filter, making sure your protein powder is checked for heavy metals and so on. So that's kind of coming at us from all angles. We have bacteria that's just lingering in our environment that in theory, our bodies can be able to, halt and rid really quickly. But if that immune system is burdened, those white blood cells I talked about earlier, it's going to have a harder time doing that. Yeast and fungus are big ones. So if you're exposed to mold, that can kind of accumulate in the body. A lot of people in college dorms experience that because the dorms are older. So the list really goes on. And I know that sounds scary to people of, how many different ways that you can be exposed to these toxins and endocrine disruptors and all this kind of stuff. But it's just about mitigating as much as you can, but also giving your body the most optimal environment for when those things inevitably come in to get them out as best as they can and as soon as they can.
Well, I love the sentiment and that you're acknowledging like how overwhelming it can be because I remember years back when I really first started diving into this and I was learning about all those things and all the things that could be like leaching toxins into your body. I was like, oh my gosh. And you kind of feel like you have to like live in a bubble to protect yourself. But I think, peeling back the layers, like take it one step at a time. Like, what's one thing you can change this month? Do
Mhm.
that, implement it, and then go on to the next thing. And maybe those like bite-sized chunks are a little bit less overwhelming to people. I know personally, I try to control what I can in my environment inside my home and then try not to stress about it so much when you're out in the world. Like, don't let it affect, going out to a restaurant to have dinner with your friends or something like that. But if someone is hearing all of this and they're feeling super overwhelmed, what are some of the places that they could start to make like the biggest impact?
I always say start with the things that you are doing every single day or that are going on or in your body every single day. For most people, that's water and coffee. Those are like the two things that most people are consuming every single day. Water, hopefully. So starting with a water filter, you don't even have to get a crazy expensive one. There are, more affordable ranges that still help to filter out some of the heavy metals. Anything is a help versus just, the Brita or the filter on your fridge that unfortunately aren't cutting it. So water filter. And then switching your coffee to one that is tested for mold and mycotoxins. There are so many people who are going out to a coffee shop to get their coffee. It's not tested for mold. It's then poured very hot in a plastic cup where that plastic melts. And then it probably has something like oat milk in it, which I could go on and on about. But point being, they're starting their day like that very often. And that's not to scare people away from coffee shops. I love going to a coffee shop and getting a latte. Like the simple pleasures are definitely like worth it. However, on a daily basis, how much can you optimize your coffee? And you can do that in many different ways to support health. But those are the two biggest things that I have my clients and encourage other people to change off the bat.
Forgive me if you don't know this off the top of your head, because I know there's some third-party testers, and I cannot remember the names of them off the top of my head. But I know you mentioned protein powder, and I've
Mhm.
really never thought about coffee. But to your point, coffee, I've thought about it in matcha,
Mhm.
that I'm enjoying right now. But any third-party testers that we could like go online and look to see, okay, this protein powder is heavy metal tested, this one isn't.
Yep. If you go on to the site of the protein powder, for example, one that I use a lot is BL by Kelly Levesque.
Mm.
She is a nutritionist. And if you go on her website where you go buy her protein, you can scroll down and see the certifications to where it is tested for heavy metals. Same thing with like Truvani, that one's tested for metals. So if you go on the actual website where you would order it, you should be able to find it.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. And I can certainly, for people listening, I can certainly look that up and make sure we include that in the show notes as well. Because yeah, I have used the Truvani. I haven't used Be Well by Kelly, but I do love her podcast and her content and everything. And so I'm sure that her stuff is very clean as well. But it can be like, who do you trust? When you're at a
Mhm.
grocery store, there's only certain things that are regulated on packaging. So it can be hard to know, like,
Yes.
okay, is this actually safe or not?
Yes, I'm happy to send you a little list of the protein powders that I know of are tested for heavy metals, just so it makes it a little bit easier on the listeners if they
Yeah,
want to shop.
yeah, absolutely. I can link to that in the show notes. So, okay, so talk to us about I guess continuing the path. You worked in corporate fashion, then you started getting all these certifications, and I'm assuming that's when you started taking on clients. But how was it really to start kind of launching your own business and to now what your day-to-day looks like?
Yes. Something I realized throughout the process is that I'm almost equally as passionate about health as I am entrepreneurship. I really love it. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, so I guess that's somewhat in my blood, but I've really loved the side of learning how to build a business. It is not an overnight process. It is definitely intricate, and there's so many things that they don't teach you. I did go to business school, even though it wasn't, for health, and there's still so much I didn't know. And so an area that I'm really passionate about is educating future practitioners and health coaches on the business side, because you can be a really good practitioner, but if you're not a good entrepreneur, it's hard for the business to be successful. And the better, more stable business we can have, the better we can serve our clients. So when I first kind of started my entrepreneurial journey and starting up the business, there was definitely some mistakes I made and some wins that I had too. It was definitely very tedious. There's, setting up the business credit cards, setting up the bank account, the LLC, all of that stuff. So I did it kind of chunk by chunk, and day by day, kind of luckily had some great mentors as well. But it was a slow build. So I kind of started the process of my website and branding a couple months prior to finishing school. So by the time that I was finished school, I had launched my website with all of my service options, and then started taking clients a couple of months after that. Now I've been in business for almost a year. I took my business full-time in December. So we're coming up on a year of full-time. And I'm still refining my offers, knowing how many clients I can take on per month to adequately serve them, and so on. So it's really been a slow build, and I've, invested in different mentorships and, gotten to learn from some really great people on how to structure your business, but it's been a huge work in progress.
Yeah, I can certainly imagine it being a little bit overwhelming of like, okay, well, I have all this knowledge, like how do I get it out to people? So that's very interesting. Are there any other like health coaches in the industry that you like to kind of like bounce ideas off of?
Yes, I have been lucky enough to be friends with Emily Morrow. She is a practitioner, and I contract for ClearStem Skincare. And we kind of built out their telehealth division of an acne lab panel. So basically, you get your blood work done, and you can get the results back of kind of the internal root causes of your acne. And she has been the one who's pioneering that. So I've gotten to learn from her a lot, on the health side, but also the business side of things, and how she's kind of structured things, lessons she's learned, and so on. So she has been a really amazing person to learn from.
That's so great. And I'm so glad you brought up the acne side of things because that's kind of the next thing I wanted to dive into. Acne specialist, not something I'd ever think about as being a specific job. I mean, I know you think maybe a dermatologist, but they do so many more things than that. So tell us a little bit about that. Do you have a lot of clients who come to you struggling with that? And what's normally like, what underlying causes do you normally see, I guess, that are causing their issues?
Yeah, so we have all of our clients within the ClearStem membership. So for context, they run their blood work, we get the results back and write them a protocol based off of those markers that are out of range for optimal skin. And one thing I'll clarify there is a lot of people will say, well, I've already been to my doctor for blood work or my derm for blood work and everything was in range. We're using a completely different set of ranges for optimal health, but also optimal skin. So a lot of times when there's nothing marked out of that medical range, we still have 15 to 25 markers out of our optimal range for clear skin. And then you get fed into a membership where we have educational videos, calls, all that stuff to really kind of coach you through it. So we have a lot of acne clients in there. And then in my personal practice, I also do see a lot of acne clients as well. I would say definitely without a hinder of a doubt, the biggest underlying cause, I know I've said it before, I probably sound like a broken record, but that underlying infection and toxic burden. Because even if there is a hormone imbalance, we still have to think, why are the hormones imbalanced, right? And it's usually coming back to that toxic burden and underlying infection that is also then burdening the liver and burdening the kidneys. And so if our detox organs are burdened and kind of under a lot of stress, then it's not uncommon for the body to push stuff out into the skin because that's also a detox organ. So it's kind of the underlying infection at the root, but that's impacting hormones, liver, kidneys, maybe overall drainage function, dehydration, things of that nature. It's all kind of coming back to that underlying infection.
Well, it's reminding me back to your point of like start with the things you do daily and the things you use the most. And so, of course, people when they think about skin, they're thinking about like what are they putting on their body? I mean, hopefully they're thinking about that, body washes, lotions, perfumes, deodorants, things like that. But then I remember when I first heard that, internal stuff is also affecting externally. And so all those detoxification organs, like you're talking about, I mean, hopefully we're helping some listeners right now and you're opening their eyes to, oh my gosh, like the things also that I'm ingesting or breathing in or surrounded by day to day could be affecting that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of, I would say like low hanging fruit too. Like if a listener is starting from scratch and is like, wow, okay, I had no idea that all of these internal aspects could impact my skin or whatever it may be. There's a lot of low hanging fruit you can do, right? Just like changing your water and coffee over the next month or two. That's a huge thing that can mitigate a lot of toxins from coming in.
Yeah. So do you have any go-tos now back to like topical type things? Do you have any go-to brands or products that you would recommend for things like laundry detergent or shampoos or lotions or things like that that maybe are a bit cleaner that people could start implementing in?
Yeah. For a lot of these things, sometimes it's not always like one brand, but there'll be a couple of products from that brand that are like really good because what we're looking at in terms of skin is yes, we want it to be low in toxins and pretty clean, but we also want it to be acne safe, meaning there's no ingredients that are going to clog your pores. So, for example, coconut oil, clean, great, you can ingest it, but putting it topically on your skin, it's very thick and it's going to clog your pores. So, we're kind of looking for both of those angles there. In terms of kind of like cleaning supplies, laundry detergents, that kind of stuff, Branch Basics is pretty good. They will have like this concentrate that you can make into a laundry detergent, a dishwashing cleaner, all that kind of stuff. Molly's Suds, I believe, is the name. That's a good detergent. And then there are trying to think of other. I use Branch Basics for a lot of like cleaning the floors, cleaning the counters. That kind of covers a lot. In terms of like topical skincare and shampoos and body washes, the brand Odell from Target is actually pretty good in terms of body washes there. Clearstem has their own shampoo and conditioners. That's what I use for shampoo and conditioner. And then body wash, there's a couple of good ones. The Odell Naturum is a great one. And then Necessaire also has one that's pretty on the cleaner side. So there's a couple of great ones in terms of brands, but again, it's more so products, not always the entire brand as a whole is like perfectly good to go.
Okay, funny that you bring up Basics because I was literally listening to a podcast this morning. I don't know if you listened to the Melissa Wood Health's podcast, but she interviewed the founder of Branch Basics this week. And so, yes, it's been in my ear. I need to swap out some of my products. So, you're reinforcing that for me. But okay, I know I've taken up a ton of your time. I'm going to start to transition us out a little bit, but what's next for your wellness company? Things that we should be on the lookout for?
Fun question. So I definitely still kind of sticking with clients. I am finding different ways to educate people and help people. I feel very grateful, but I have had to close my practice. My client roster is completely full at this time. So while that's great and I'm super happy, it's like, okay, well, how can I, educate people further and help them further in a different way? And so one area that I mentioned that I am really passionate about is helping future and aspiring health coaches and practitioners launch their practice and teach them more of the business side of things that I've, had to figure out for myself over the past couple of years. So I'm working on a course for aspiring practitioners and health coaches to really kind of dive into the entrepreneurial and business side of it. We have a couple exciting things coming for ClearStem. I'm always working on kind of growing that division. So offering different testing in it, making the membership more valuable on that side. And then for the new year, just thinking about how I can serve. So master classes and things like that to further educate. Those are kind of a couple things on the horizon. But yeah, we'll kind of see where it takes us. I find that with entrepreneurship, things can change and opportunities can come so fast. So I'm just really excited for this next year ahead, kind of now that I've had my first year of practice under my belt.
Yeah, how exciting. And exciting to kind of like be in charge of your own journey and you can try one thing and then you can go off to another thing. So
100%. One of my favorite parts.
very fun. Okay, I got a couple of questions and then we'll get into some rapid fire.
Amazing.
So first, I want to ask, what's your favorite workout?
My favorite workout is strength training. I know it's the popular answer nowadays, but just even the impact that I've seen it have on labs, the most bang for your buck. So I love strength training.
What's your favorite food?
Oh, that's a steak. Probably a good grass-fed steak.
Yeah. Okay. It is tough. These are toughies. It's okay.
Yeah.
And any new wellnessy products, trends, classes, things that you're into lately that we should try as well?
I love a good Brazilian lymphatic drainage massage. I feel like they are becoming more popular in different cities. You can definitely find them in Charleston, New York, LA, Austin, that kind of stuff. But I'm seeing spas pop up a little bit more across the US. So a good Brazilian lymphatic drainage massage can do a ton of good for your health. It's one of my addictions.
I love it. And so funny. Literally this week's guest episode, she talks about that a little bit and how you can, if you can't go get a massage, you can use like the gua sha or the dry brushing, things like that to get the lymphatic drainage going.
Exactly.
Okay. Rapid fire. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Morning or evening workout?
Morning.
Running or walking?
Walking.
Lifting or body weight?
Lifting.
Indoor or outdoor workouts?
Outdoor.
Juice or smoothie?
Smoothie.
Coffee or matcha?
Coffee.
You can say both. It's okay.
I know, that's a hard one. I alternate.
Me too. Salad or bowl?
Bowl.
Pizza or pasta?
Pizza.
Tacos or quesadilla?
Tacos.
An early riser or a night owl?
Night owl naturally, but early riser by choice.
All right. Well, I know you mentioned you weren't taking new clients, but where can people follow along? And maybe if we have some aspiring health coaches listening, where can they be on the lookout if you do launch this new side of your business?
Yes. So my Instagram is Hannah Brooke Wellness, and then my website is hannahbrookewellness.com. I pretty much post everything there, and you can join the email list. And then if I do open up new client spots, I will post it on there.
Perfect. Well, Hannah, thank you so much. It was so fun getting to chat with you today.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Health by Haven podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to give the show a 5-star rating and leave a review. It makes such a huge difference in reaching new people and spreading the joy of healthy living. I would also be so appreciative if you subscribe to the show in the listening app of your choice so you never miss an episode. Your support truly means the world to me. Have a happy, healthy day, and I'll talk to you again soon.